All right, hi everybody, John Meadows here with Dave Tate. Hopefully you've been watching all of Dave's information this week, but we're not done yet. We still have to talk about the deadlift. So
I wish we were done. I hate the deadlift.
he doesn't like the deadlift.
I hate the deadlift. All right, anyhow, we're going to talk about the deadlift. Even though I hate it, still got to do it.
All right.
Again, I'm going to have 5 exercises, which aren't really exercises, but let's just say 5 points. So the first point is everything that I've discussed with the squat carries over to the deadlift. So all those exercises are the same exercises that are going to drive up the deadlift. So there's not a whole lot that I can sprinkle on this that's going to add a lot more to it. But there are some things that should be noted that are in there. Technically, there's a lot of things, but we'll get into that tomorrow. So the exercises for the deadlift. First one is the squat. So as I said, I'm talking just the straight squat. So I like the squat and I'm going to be talking about things that you guys may not have, but I'm going to give you some alternatives to it as well. So I really like the yoke bar with a close stance to a low box for an exercise that helps the deadlift, because it looks a lot like the deadlift as far as the conventional deadlift and the body positioning, but the way that the bar puts you, structurally throughout the whole lift. And by going a little bit lower to that low box, the hip position is going to be pretty close to the same as the start hip position on the deadlift. So that is my number one. If there's one exercise that's going to help a conventional deadlift more than any, there's nothing outside of like lower back work and stuff like that. That's it. There's nothing in my book that's going to even be close to that. To the point that if somebody's a conventional deadlifter, their form's dead on, they can just do that and won't even have to deadlift, and the deadlift will still go up. So alternatives, if you don't have that, you can use. I don't even know if we still sell it, but it's called a man array. So it's this plastic thing that snaps on the bar. It allows you to hold the bar a little bit higher, regular barbell, a little bit higher in your traps. So yes, it's like a high bar squat, but it's even higher than a high bar squat. What that does is it kind of pitches you a little bit forward when you squat, just like the safety squat bar does. But it's not a safety squat bar. It snaps on a bar. It's a little blue thing snaps on the bar. I do think that we still sell it, but I don't think anybody sells very many of them. So I probably should say that if you do find one, buy it, because it probably won't be around another 5-6 years. I don't use it because I got 30 safety squat bars in here. So that would be a default if you don't have that. So that would be my recommendation if that's the case. I would not use, a towel or a fat bar or anything like that, because it rolls, where this isn't going to roll, and it's not that expensive. So that would be for that. The second point or exercise, it's hips, okay? So what do I mean by that? When I'm critiquing somebody's deadlift and I'm watching it, I'm watched from the side and I'm watched when they're pulling on the bar. At a certain point during that pull, I'm going to see their back begins to do this. It just tries to arch the finish of the lift, and it shouldn't do that. It shouldn't do. The hips should do that, push it in to be able to finish that. So a lot of people just are not driving their hips through when they should. So instead of, can you see me from there?
Yeah.
All right, so what people are doing, they're getting here and then they're trying to do this, to exaggerate it, to where when it's here, it's that. We got to drive the hips through. So I look for exercises and ways to simulate that. One of the best ways that I've seen to simulate that is to do a block pull with the weights off of the ground, so they're sitting on blocks, with a lot of change. You might have seen John and I do challenge sets with that kind of stuff. What that does is you're overloading that portion where the person wants to try to arch up here with a ton of chain. And if they try to do this, they're not going to be able to do it. Where if you overload that with enough chain or even band from this position, and they can't do that, they're going to default to pushing the hips through. Or you can cue, hips, hips, hips. Then they start to feel, oh, all I need to do is push my hips in. That's way easier than having to arch it through. So with that, it really doesn't matter what type of deadlift, as long as it's a barbell. It is, if you can overload the top part where that's happening with bands, chains, or I guess that's really it, bands or chains. You can kind of do it if it's just a rack pull or a black pull with straight weights, but it's nowhere near as effective, not even close. And I guess while I'm on this topic, just to hit this while I'm here, the difference between a block pull and a rack pull. So if you're pulling with the barbell sitting on stands, so the plates are on stands compared to out of a rack, those are two entirely different lifts to me. Most people are going to say it's the same thing. It's not, because the weight moves differently. So when the weights are on the blocks and you go to pull the bar is allowed to bend. The bar is going to whip, which means that force is going to be displaced throughout the whole bar to the ends of to the beginning where it hits the plates. So you have more movement before the plates begin to move, okay? When you're in a power rack and that barbell sitting on those pins, that force stops when the barbell hits the pin. So that force that you're trying to generate, the bar can't bend the same. You can't pull the slack out of the bar the same. So it overloads a lot harder, just the tension on how that works. So that's the biggest difference, is how that works. Is one better than the other? Depends on the purpose. Personally, I think pulling off blocks is way better, because that's going to simulate more how a deadlift works and when the weight starts to leave the floor. The other thing is it saves the bars. You know, the bars get pounded when it's in a pin, where it doesn't get pounded as much the other way. So on to the next exercise or point. Okay, next point. I don't even know how many points it is anymore, but I'm going to say the stiff legs and the Romanians again, pretty much for the same reason that they were in there for the squat. So I'm just going to breeze past that really quick, because the sets and reps, all that's going to be the same, because the squat and deadlift are kind of programmed, you know, the same. And for a lot of people, it's going to be programmed on the same day. So what I will say is, in my opinion, it's not, you know, again, all this is my opinion, so keep that the way it is. I wouldn't do stiff legs and Romanians twice a week. You know, I would do one and then something easier on the other day. So I wouldn't do them on deadlift day and squat day. I would pick one or the other. There's pros and cons for each. I don't think you can make a mistake. Either way you go. You just figure out what's going to work best for you. It is 4, so now I am on number 4. I'm going to put barbell rows. And I'm going to put the barbell rows rather than a chest supported row or a machine row for a very, very easy reason. You're going to do them after you deadlift, and the bar's already set up, and you already got to put your frickin' weights away, right? So you just peel this down, tear this down until you got a weight that you can use for your barbell rows, and then do 3 sets of 8 to 10 with the barbell rows before you just rack it and put it away. So let's forget about all other reasons of why it would be in for your programming. That's almost, there's no excuse as to why you can't do the barbell rows after you deadlift, because it's already there, it's already set up, you already got to peel it down. So just knock off a couple sets and be done with it. That way you're taking care of it. It's not going to be detrimental to you. It can basically only help. So that's why I put it in this list. Number 5, snatch grip deadlift. The reason for this, and a snatch grip's just wide grip deadlift, so way wider than what you would think. And the reason for this is that lat activation. I want you to be able to, you know, pull with your lats. So it's pretty self-explanatory on how to do a snatch grip deadlift. So with that, sets and reps, I would probably keep to 3 to 5. You know, there are different ways to go about doing a snatch grip deadlift if you just want to be creative and have fun with it. You know, you can put plates on a trap bar and then just grab the plates. I think John's got a video of doing those where you remember the trap bar deadlifts where you're holding the plates?
Yeah, what do we call that though? There was an old bodybuilder that used to do those.
Yeah. But basically, that's going to simulate a snatch grip deadlift with a different grip. So with a more
Reeves.
Yeah,
Reeves
yeah.
deadlift.
yeah. So Reeves deadlift it's a good example. So that's if you want to be more creative, have some fun with it, do different things. So 3 to 5 rep range on that, 3 to 5 sets is going to be good. I think that's the 5 exercises. I kind of whip through these pretty fast because, as I said at the very beginning, the same things for the squat are going to build the deadlift. As long as you're covering your bases, I do think things like, the torso work, which I talked about in the squat, it's vital. It's just as vital for the deadlift, if not more so. Things like reverse hypers, pull down abs, hanging leg raises, all those things kind of fall into there, which are basically non-negotiable to me. So that's all, and that's also important. So I don't want it to make it sound like those are not important. I just wanted to put some other things out that you may not have thought about. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the technical aspects that are probably going to help far more than these exercise aspects. So check back tomorrow. We'll get into that and we'll go from there.